Happy Wednesday, everyone, and thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats. I'm your host, Mike Luke. All right, we got a lot to get through this show. We're going to break down position by position, Arizona ASU, what Arizona needs to do to be able to thwart the Sun Devils in their revenge win game against Arizona in McHale. Let's get started here on Locked On Wildcats.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, got a lot to get to this show, but big opportunity here for the University of Arizona to win these next three games and essentially lock up a number one seed. Because again, that's what everybody's looking for at this stage in the game. Can you get a number one seed? How do you lock it up? How do you procure that? And that's what Arizona is looking to do right here. Now, the first thing you got to do is you got to get through ASU. Now, to rehash, remember, up in Tempe, Arizona did not play well against ASU. At least for a mid portion of the game, because if you remember, Arizona struggled in that Arizona got up to a big lead, and then ASU started pressing, started pressuring, started putting a lot of things out there that disrupted Arizona, and that became more of an issue for the Cats. You watched that game though, and you also knew that there's some weird stuff going on here because Tommy Lloyd essentially didn't call a timeout when the lead went from 19-2. That's a little bit of an issue right there. Now Lloyd, I think, has maybe corrected that a little bit, but again, who am I to dispute Tommy Lloyd? Because Tommy Lloyd is also going to be about to be the winningest coach in college basketball history in his first two seasons. But Arizona ASU. ASU's coming in here, and their season is essentially in a tailspin right now. Not only is it in a tailspin, this was a team that looked like they were going to be an NCAA tournament squad, and not only are they not an NCAA tournament squad, they don't even look like they could be an NIT team the way they're losing, and you also kind of wonder if Bobby Hurley's on his way out. But ASU is still dangerous, as we've seen. ASU under Bobby Hurley will generally always be dangerous to a certain degree. So let's talk about what they can do, all those different avenues right there. First, you got to look at it, and what's made this team a little bit different than in previous Bobby Hurley ASU teams is they got a big man in the middle. They got a guy that can roam the inside and block some shots in Warren Washington. Transfer out of Nevada, really good player. Not only is he a really good player, he's a guy that is able to essentially alter, like we talked about, alter a lot of shots right there. He is something they haven't had in a while. But after that, you don't have it to bigs up front. Now, with some guys that are the twins that we'll get to in a second. But then after that, it becomes more of the perimeter and what ASU can do. And that's no real slight to ASU. And then it gets to the Cambridge boys. Both these guys were very good transfers for ASU. They can both score in a variety of ways. They're both pretty athletic. They can both do a variety of different things. You look at them, they're both kind of in that 6'5", 6'6", 6'7" range. One 6'4", the other about 6'6", 6'7". And, they're not high efficiency guys, but they're guys that can put the ball in the bucket. And Arizona's got to be ready for that. And I think Arizona will be more than ready for that. Then you got some other guys that you got to keep an eye on, like a Frankie Collins, nice little point guard that they got from originally from Compass, came over from Michigan. Was a nice move for him to be able to get in there. And you've also got an Angel Nunez. They've got firepower, but as we've talked about time and time again, when you have no structure, which ASU does it becomes a little bit of an issue. And not only does it become a little bit of an issue, it kind of limits how good you can be. You watch ASU, and they should be better than they are. I mean, I'm not breaking any news right here. They should be better. They should be better than they are. But that's also why you've got a guy like a Tommy Lloyd and why you've got a guy like a Bobby Hurley. Now, what does Arizona need to do in this game? Arizona's got to dominate down low. Now, this will be a nice little test, I think, for Arizona, because between Azuolas Tubelis, who has not been playing great ball, and Umar Ballo, you need to be able to dominate down low. And I don't care who it is. I don't care if you got Warren Washington. Again, Warren Washington, a very good player, but you got to be able to dominate down low. And if you can dominate down low, then you're going to be in pretty good shape. But that's always the way that it should be for Arizona. When you got Azuolas Tubelis, when you got Umar Ballo, it's kind of the way that it should be. So I'm looking for a big time performance here out of both of the peaks right here. Then my guy, Ced Henderson Jr., I don't think Ced gets enough love, to be honest with you. I watch Cedric Henderson Jr., and I think to myself that this guy isn't getting the love that he probably deserves. And not only is he not getting the love that he probably deserves, he does it in such a quiet manner in that a lot of people are just kind of take it for granted, for lack of a better term. They watch him and they're like, okay, he's doing his thing, but he was big time this past week. I mean, when you're getting 16 points off 9 shots, that's big time stuff right there. And not only is he doing it in the manner in which he's doing it, but he's also playing really good defense. He doesn't do dumb things. He steps in there, and you can tell the coaching staff is very comfortable with what he can do as a player. And I think that's what's exciting about him. And it also goes to show you too, and we're going to get to this in a few minutes, Tommy Lloyd's ability to be able to get guys in there who maybe don't put up the biggest numbers in the world, but also have an ability to be able to play some really good team ball in the manner in which I think that you would like to see a player or a team like Tommy Lloyd. But Ced Henderson, he's been absolutely fantastic this year. He and Courtney Ramey, who we're going to get to in a couple minutes, have both been great. I do think that there is something to be said about Lloyd's ability to be able to bring in players that buy into his system, that fit into his system. Because again, it's a unique style in that you're not going to have somebody that's going to be pounding the ball, ISOing it the entire time. That's just not the case. You're not going to have any of that, and I think that's not going to be attractive to some. That's not going to be attractive to certain players. Give you a Keon Brooks, for example. Keon Brooks, kid out of Washington, kid out of Kentucky, looked at coming to Arizona, but also decided not to come to Arizona because of the, probably that he could go to Washington to be the main man. Nothing wrong with that. Just a fact of life, though, that, Keon Brooks probably better off there. But Tommy Lloyd's also not going to get a lot of those guys. He's not going to get a lot of those high volume type players. But again, that's why guys like Courtney Ramey, that's why guys like Ced Henderson fit in the manner in which they do, because again, they're not these high volume, high players that, I need my looks, I need my shots. They fit into what Tommy Lloyd wants to do. And you got to remember too, you've already got guys on this team that have a little bit of an ego. And I say that in a complimentary way, because when you reach the highest level of college basketball, you should have an ego. Now, again, not a negative ego per se, but you should have an ego. You should be the guy that, yeah, I know I'm good, and watch what I'm about to do out here. That type of situation. And I think Arizona has done a good job of keeping those guys in there. Give you an example, Kerr Kriisa. You watch Kerr out there, and he drives a lot of people crazy with his field goal percentage or, taking some odd shots. But aren't you happy that he's on your team, though? And he's also a guy that you feel very comfortable with taking that last shot at the end of a game. So big kudos right there to Tommy Lloyd just for the roster construction. Now, had a lot of people that have asked about, what's going on with, the bench. Right now, it looks like Tommy Lloyd's going to go about 7 deep, and I can't blame him for it because coaches do this every single year. Not only do they do this every single year, it's just kind of a rite of passage. Every year we would hear that Lute Olson was, was going to add to the rotation, or do this or do that. And it never happened because, again, coaches don't do that. It sounds great to say in theory. It sounds absolutely fantastic to say in theory, but the where you're looking at is that Arizona basketball right now is kind of at the Arizona's kind of at the place where you need to be able to get these kind of players on a game in basis. Now, let me tell you a little bit about FanDuel. FanDuel, great stuff right here where it's at. Now, let's put the overlay in here. FanDuel.com/LockedOnCollege. Make every moment count. FanDuel's great. FanDuel is taking off because not only is FanDuel taking off, the reason that it's taking off is because everybody knows about it. It's fun. It works. Everybody likes it. This is the best time of the year to hop in here. You got college basketball. You got college football. You got all of that stuff going on. Great time to hop on FanDuel. Again, FanDuel.com/LockedOnCollege. Check it out. Check out the show notes and the link in the description. But again, FanDuel Sportsbook, make every moment count. Again, you got basketball, you got baseball right around the corner, all kinds of fun stuff. Hop in there. We're going to come up next. We're going to talk about the reserve big men for the U of A and what they need to be do going forward. Thanks for keeping it locked on, Wildcats. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now we've got to talk a little bit about the peaks. We've got to talk a little bit about where Henry Vasar, Dylan Anderson, and Adama Ball are in there, and let's talk about that a little bit. Okay, first and foremost is you've got Henry Vasar. Henry's going to be a big player for the U of A. I don't think that there's any doubt about it. Henry is going to be a big-time player. And not only is he going to be a big-time player, he's going to be a guy that I think is going to play in the NBA. And not only is he going to play in the NBA, I think that he's going to be the player that is going to I think at some point he could be a lottery pick. You watch how he moves. You watch how athletic he is. You watch how he engages out there, and he's good. Again, and I don't think Tommy Lloyd is going to say anything that is out of left field here. I don't think he would even care about this, but he's always said, he's like, big men take a while, but when they hit, they hit. And I think you're going to see that there with Big Henry. And again, I'd like to see him get a little bit more minutes. Again, this is always a caveat. There's always a caveat in play right here. But I would like to see Henry get some more minutes right there because I think at some point Arizona's got to be 7 or 8 men deep. I know you're already 7 men, but there's times where you're going to need that extra guy to block some shots. And not only are you going to need him to block some shots, you're going to need him to probably play some big-time minutes, and I think that he's more than capable of doing that. Now, Dylan Anderson, my guy, your guy, everybody's guy. I still love Dylan Anderson's potential long-term. I think he's going to be a very, very good player for the University of Arizona. Just going to take him a little bit of time. I think ideally he would have redshirted this year, but I think it was a combination of Arizona being a little bit better than, Arizona, or him being a little bit better than Arizona might have thought, and the fact that, at this stage of the game, I think it was hard to redshirt. And so, again, I love Dylan Anderson, big fan of his. Then Adama Ball. I would love to see Arizona do with Adama Ball what they did with Ricky Anderson back in the day. Ricky Anderson back in the day played 2 years at the U of A. Then he was redshirted. And he was redshirted mainly because he didn't get any better. He wasn't playing a ton as a freshman or a sophomore. And it looked like to Lute Olson that he had some potential, but it was going to take him a little bit of time. And not only was it going to take him a little bit of time, Arizona didn't want to waste time in the process. So they redshirted Ricky Anderson, And when Ricky Anderson was then ready to play, came back, he was a pretty good player. Now, again, I've always felt that Luton Ross overrated Ricky Anderson to a certain degree because he wasn't very athletic and he was pretty limited. But he came back and he was a 12.6 rebound per game guy. I'm not saying Adama Ball will be that. I'm not saying that Adama Ball won't be that. But I will say, though, that Adama Ball is going to be I will say that Adama Ball is going to be a player that I think can play. When you look at him, he's about 6'6", 6'5". He's very long, 17 or 18 years old. Should be a freshman at this point, but you watch him though, and he's a guy that I don't want to see go off to Georgia or Washington State and become a 7 or 16 point per game guy. I would love to see him redshirt. I don't know in this day and age of college athletics if that's really even plausible, but if it is plausible, I'd love to see him do that. Now, the other guy too that has emerged in a massive way has been Kylan Boswell. Kylan Boswell is a player who not only has surpassed my expectations, I think he's surpassed pretty much everybody's expectations. I thought coming into the year that he was going to take anything that he got. I think that he was. I think it was going to take him a little bit of time, and sure, it took a little bit of time, but I didn't see him becoming this. When Boswell enters the game, he is a total difference maker out there from a physical perspective, from basically everything, from a physicality perspective, from a he's able to just do what you need for him to do out there, and he looks comfortable in the process. He can pass, he can get to the hoop, he can do a lot of different things. And while he's not maybe next level athletic, he's good enough athletic. And that's where I think that Arizona really hit the ball out of the park. Tommy Lloyd said that he thought he could be one of the best lead guards to come through here. I still don't know that I see that, but I'm also not going to say that I don't see it at this point because, as we've talked about many times, Tommy Lloyd's track record right there is pretty good. But that's essentially what needs to happen, though, for these Arizona in this game. And we're going to get to SC and we'll get to UCLA later in the week. Arizona should be able to take care of ASU. I know ASU is talented, but there's also a lot of issues that they have. And there's a lot of issues that just come with having a Bobby Hurley team that, quite frankly, just isn't that good and is far more limited than they probably should be. And that's always going to be a little bit of an issue. All right. Now, what is the future of ASU? We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back there. We're going to mock them for a couple minutes before we sign off. Thanks for keeping it locked on, Wildcats. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now let's talk about Arizona State basketball. I fall into the camp where I believe that ASU should be able to be good. I don't know that they should be a top 15 team, but I still believe that when you're in the Phoenix metro area, you got those kind of people, you should be good. And quite frankly, it just hadn't happened. Bill Frieder had a little bit of life, had a little bit of run right there in the mid 90s where you felt that ASU could bring in some players that were really good. That has been a long time ago, though. Bob Evans sucked. Herb Sendek wasn't any good. Bobby Hurley is limited. These guys are all a good year is kind of a fringe tournament team. I would think that at ASU, you would be able to get a team that would be very, very able to be very good, or at least have a coach that would be able to bring in. Because again, you look around the valley, forget the prep schools for a second, the compasses and whatnot. You still got a lot of really good guys in private or in public schools. You know, just look at Cody Williams, or look at Dylan Anderson, look at Koa Pete, all of those guys. Those are players that you should be on from the time they're in 7th or 8th grade. And not only should you be on them from the time they're in 7th or 8th grade, you should be making a big impact with them. Because again, if that's just kind of the way it is in college basketball this year. You got to be able to recruit. You got to be able to recruit early. And I don't know what Bobby Hurley's recruiting template is, to be honest with you. As a matter of fact, I don't think there is a recruiting template. And I think if you're an ASU fan, that's where it's a little bit disturbing. So that's kind of where we're at. I expect Arizona to be able to smash ASU. Tomorrow, we're going to come back. We're going to start breaking down the LA schools in depth like we did today. But as always, Really appreciate all of you tuning in right here to Locked On Wildcats. We are in game by game basis, and Arizona basketball is right where it needs to be. And so, again, I will be back with you tomorrow. As always, thanks for keeping it Locked On Wildcats. I am your host, Mike Luke. Have a great rest.